As a founder, I'll say there is no silver bullet there, and you know this as well, right? In my mind, there is one rule that I have been following myself through this journey is no stone unturned. You just have to push. Yes, you'll see a lot of closing doors in front of you for many years, and in most cases, it's not your fault. Time is not right. Market has not realized how important it is. Keep on going, keep on pushing, keep on hustling, keep on getting in front of people, because I do not come from the automotive industry. I knew zero people in the automotive industry. Now I probably have over 1,000 or 2,000 connections.
Evgeny, welcome to Tech Scenes Unplugged. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Jeff. Really glad to be here.
Let's start from the top. Tell me about Sheeva.
Sheeva.AI is a company that I have been working on since roughly 2016 to 18 when I started this organization. It was originally called actually Parkaphone, phone for parking, which was my personal story behind the creation of this enterprise where I was driving my pregnant wife to hospital. I was a second baby, and I had to park on the street, walk all the way to the parking meter, take the receipt, put it back on the dash. She had to wait. We're late for a doctor's appointment. I'm like, why can't I just park and walk away? Called my brother, who is a R&D engineer, and I said, what is the best way to do it? And then we figured out that the only way to do it is by utilizing location of the vehicle at the specific point of service, because the vehicle is the best predictor where I am, and the
Right.
vehicle who should pay or that should pay for me for whatever services I'm consuming, instead of me looking for that meter or even a parking zone number for pay by phone.
Right.
So that's where all of this started, and then we rebranded into Shiva in 2020. As the name suggests, more of a alliteration to the Indian deity with multiple arms, where we figured out that we could use this technology, which we invented around location, to also pay for fuel, pay for electric vehicle charging, pay for tolls, pay for retail, and so many arms of that kind of god.
Yeah,
That is why we decided to go ahead and name this company Shiva.
that's really interesting. I did not catch that before, but that makes a lot of sense. And I love the idea of what you said of like, why should I pay for this? It's the car. Like the car should be paying for these car related things. And so parking, yeah, that makes so much sense. I had a similar story. I didn't start a company around it, but when my first daughter that was born, you always envision this like running to the airport, like driving super, or not airport, the hospital, driving super fast and this craziness. We got out to the car and I had a Range Rover at the time. It had hydraulics, but they were broken. And so it didn't raise up. When you got in the car, they would, inflate and raise up. And it would not inflate. And I was turning the car on and off. My wife's like, we got to go. But it wouldn't let me drive any faster than 15 miles or 20 miles. And we had to drive. We had no other car at the time. You couldn't call an Uber at the time. And so I kept on driving. Then I'd turn off the car and see if it would inflate and try to figure it out. But yeah, my drive to the hospital was like 15 miles an hour with
Yeah.
my wife being pregnant. And since there's no suspension, there you can feel every single bump on the way. I did not create a company off that though, so applaud to you for doing that. It's interesting. Like your space is really interesting. What was your background before you got into Shiba and launched this?
My background was diverse. I probably had 3 or 4 careers before starting this business. So I do come from international relations, diplomacy, more government affairs.
Okay.
Then I moved into innovation. I did go to study my PhD at Manchester Business School in the UK. And that's where I focused on science policy, innovation policy, technology management. And then I got a job here in Washington, D.C., in the US, well, a little over 10 years ago when I
Right.
moved over here after my studies. And that was a wonderful experience looking into data science, big data. How can you utilize multiple data sources? How can you clean them, disambiguate them to create value for the governments to better understand where to put our taxpayer dollars?
Hmm.
Which is always a question, right? What is the
Right.
most efficient way to spend all of those trillions of dollars in the budget, in the federal budget at least? And from there, already being based here in the Washington D.C. metro area, that idea just came up as I just explained, and I started my company. So it's really different iterations of how I was looking for the best opportunity and the best ambition for
Yeah.
me to fulfill, and that's how it all came up.
Yeah. And you guys are really international company, is that right? Like from your strategic investments and where you are using your technology right now. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. So that is very true. It's in innovation world they call it born global. So a startup or a small business that is just born to be global. The reason being, of course, is we work on in-car payment space, and that means working with the large auto manufacturers. And those auto manufacturers, they produce, manufacture literally across the world. Take Stellantis, 14 brands. Um, and like you can manufacture something in Slovakia, you ship it over to Japan, and that's where the car is being driven, right?
Right.
So therefore, if you work with such global organizations, you have to offer some services, platforms for them that can be easily scalable in different regions. But when you start looking into in-car payment space, you understand, oh, okay, payments work very differently in different countries. India, UPI, Unified Payment Interface. Japan is a little different. Europe, 3DS, a little bit additional things to even pay by the card. Even if you go across the border to Canada to pay with the card there, you usually have to use PIN code. So there are a lot of differences in the payment ecosystem. And then the other difference is, of course, service providers, what the market is looking for. How does it work? In India, for example, you have fuel attendants at every gas station. Here, you only have it in New Jersey and Oregon, only two states. Everywhere else, it's self pay, right?
Right.
Self-service. So therefore, those differences have to be handled. And when we started looking around and really trying to build it out, we of course started in the United States and gone through the accelerator program here in Baltimore, and then we got accepted in Techstars, Techstars Smart Mobility, which is actually based out of Italy, Turin, the birthplace of Fiat, so FCA. And that's where we started kind of really realizing how to make it international, how to make it that global, and how to capture that diversity into one global single platform that we're trying to build here for in-vehicle payments. I started talking to different people, and that's where strategic investors started paying attention, mostly from the automotive sector. For example, even during the COVID year, 2020, I went on a virtual conference because everything was virtual back then,
Yep.
and I met Anish Agarwal, who is in India, and his family business is really one of the most big and profitable tier one automotive tier one suppliers. They're based in Delhi, and he said, "Oh, it's an interesting idea. Let's look into it." And I said, "Sure, let's collaborate. It will take me at least a decade to get over there to India. So why don't we just work together to figure out if we can launch Indian market?" And today we already publicly have launched with Citroen vehicles out there already on the road, and already being available for customers to pay for fuel from within the car at 30,000 plus gas stations.
Wow.
So, and then we have other services. We have multiple other partners. Car wash is another example. We work with vehicle care. So there are a lot of things happening there. And then I also started talking and working with some colleagues in Germany. And one of the really, really smart, really good investor named Thomas Andre came on board and he said, "Oh, it's an interesting, I love the vision. It's a global vision, you guys, and it's practical, right?
Right.
Because it's right here. You can do the in vehicle payments right here because the user wants it. The market is going there. So yeah, let me invest a little bit there and support you in Germany as well, which is a huge auto manufacturing country. And then, of course, here in the United States, we have continued to build, first angel investment accelerators, but then we got to meet Reynolds and Reynolds, which is one of the largest dealership management software companies, and they invested through their capital arm, which is called Reynolds Capital Corporation. Um, and they have been super supportive
Mm,
through the process, really coming from the space of automotive retail, but understanding the entire ecosystem of how
right.
cars are being sold, what actually matters to the dealerships, what matters to the consumers at the end. So they have been really a pleasure to work with. And then a very important one is in Japan as well, Hagiwara Electronics, which first they invested from Hagiwara America, and then they invested from their headquarter earlier this year. And now we're building very quickly Japan market. We already implemented EV charging, POC and EV charging concept for paying inside the car and activating the charger from within the vehicle. That was actually announced in our second Partners Day in Tokyo just a few weeks ago. And then we're working with parking partners there as well right now. So you can see that a lot of this growth, which is unusual for a startup to be global,
Right.
but it came from the strategic investments. But it was meant to be just because of the industry we're in and the demand for this type of service in all regions of the world.
That's really interesting. I've actually been involved with auto tech since the late 90s. I was in
Okay.
a company and we were doing uh, technology, partnered with GM, and we were doing a variety of different auto tech and looking at analytics and things like that and route optimization and all this different type of stuff. It's interesting to see it evolve. Tell me if I'm wrong, but one of my assumptions over the last decade is I really feel like eventually there's only going to be maybe 3 to 5 operating systems for vehicles. I feel like there's this idea of a operating system for your home, operating system obviously for your computer, operating system for everything, right? And I think I kind of envision that there will be operating systems for vehicles. Obviously, Tesla has an operating system for their vehicle, and more of these vehicles are going, I think, towards that kind of electronic car. What's your thought on that?
Well, of course, there is a concept of software-defined vehicles in the industry, which is how can you make software run the vehicle? It's a little bit of a confusing concept, to be honest, because there are different layers in the vehicle architecture. So when you
Right.
look at the vehicle, it's so many components, so many ECUs, electronics control units. All of them have their own software, their own microprocessors or CPUs as the application processors. Then you have hardware abstraction. There is a lot of terminology in the automotive industry, and that knowledge is not easily accessible to everyone out there who's not coming from the industry, right?
Right.
Which I do believe this is one of our unfair advantages of Shiva as a company is we actually understand very well how the vehicle is being built and what are the types of problems that OEMs have to go through in terms of certify everything, comply with every regulation, SAE, ISO, everything else. And then how do they homologation is another word, which is just to make sure that off the assembly line you have that vehicle actually ready to drive
Yeah.
in the open with all the regulations. So understanding all of this, you get to accept the complexity of the automotive industry and how all of these different suppliers, different manufacturers bring together those different components. And even think about Tesla. Yes, I understand what you call about from the kind of product perspective. There's an operating system. But in fact, if you dig a little deeper from the technical perspective, you'll see that there are so many different components that all
Right.
have to talk to each other. And therefore, the question is it software driving the vehicle? And the answer is that's how SDV has been defined. And the answer is unlikely. Why do you need software to really drive the vehicle? Right. But when you talk about user experience and the application layer, that's where I believe every OEM today realizes that that's where all the value should be
Right.
because otherwise you just become a commodity, just just a hardware piece, just a product like I don't know, like buying a kitchen or something like this. Like
Yeah.
who cares? It's a little bit different look, great, but what is the differentiation really there? There's no experience differentiation, which is where OEMs have taken pride into. You sit in that car and you feel it's it's a Corvette or is it like a Maserati or you feel that is
Right.
why people buy those types of vehicles, right? And that they should not look to lose that, right? And that means just a little bit better software. And as you refer to it as operating system, which means more like a front-facing operating system as to how does it look to the consumer? What is the interface? How
That
do I interact with that vehicle? And that's where I do believe they realized all of this because it's really the key point of differentiation for them. And that's where all of them invested crazy amounts of money into building their own software organizations.
yeah, I think there's an interesting this is an interesting moment in time, and I think over the next decade, this is gonna change a lot, but I think in the past, you'd get into your Porsche and you'd be like, "I'm driving this Porsche." Now you get into your Porsche and you're like, "Why isn't my phone connecting to this?
Mm.
I want my phone experience to so I don't have to be on my phone or look at my phone, but I want that experience in that vehicle without trying to connect it via Bluetooth or if did it connect or
Yeah.
not connect. There's a phone calls coming in, can I call up Siri or those types of it feels like we're bringing our technology with us and we want to use it in these vehicles where in the past it was the vehicle itself was the technology. And I think in the next decade, you will see more of a frictionless experience of like being in the vehicle and the technology that we use will feel seamless within that.
Yes.
Is that CarPlay? Is that the Apple
CarPlay,
product?
sure. Yes, CarPlay Android Auto is a Google product to connect
Okay.
Android phones. But this is just one of the layers, as you rightly say.
Right.
It's the only presence of the experience as to smart home, as you also talked about, right?
Right.
You get from that, that your lock is locked, type of thing. Your doorbell is working. That you get into the vehicle and you have it with your car. Everything is kind of smooth. So, of course, we know in the Apple universe, they have been really, really successful with doing this, right? You have MacBook, it syncs really easily with your iPhone, then your Apple TV can sync
Right.
everything else. It's just they have been really thinking about it this way. Now, how do we fit in the car? Because Apple, yes, we know that they shut down that platform, right? Apple Car is not coming. But I would imagine that the conceptual thinking should be there for everyone to understand how does the car fit into this universe of things
Right.
that we just deal with, which sometimes it's referred to as Internet of Things, right? And everything, IoT devices and things. So yeah, and of course, in that case, software will be a very important component of making sure that everything just ties together, but still having that differentiation where my vehicle is still my vehicle, right?
Right.
It still has something unique to it, right? And exclusive. And the one thing that I love, I have a colleague, as our chief technology officer, Lokesh Kumar. He's like, I do believe that in the next decade, those knobs, the hardware knobs to control your climate control inside the
Yeah.
car, AC, those will be premium features. No one will have them. Everything will be just digitized. So now we have that move that the more digitized, the more premium it is. And
Yeah.
then in the next iteration, it will be, oh, returning back to those knobs will be more premium.
Well, BMW has a lot of knobs in their vehicles. Some of the premium high end cars have still a bunch of knobs and switches and
Yep.
it's really interesting. And then you'll sit in some cars where you just have screens all over, and
Yep.
I think
Well, Tesla
they're
is a good example in that, actually.
right. Yeah. Um, so one of the questions I have was, what was your experience with Techstars? So I actually didn't know that you were part of the program. I'm working with a
It
lot of
was
tech
actually
stars
very
companies.
well. It was very good, although it was fairly unique in the matter that we were in Italy and it
Yeah.
was COVID year.
Mm,
So literally in the middle of the program, everything started to happen. And we had to shut down the program. I was the only one of the entire cohort who left behind in Italy. We were there for like with my family for 7, 8 months, I believe, when everything kind of locked down, sitting in the apartment for 6 months, 6 weeks, not even leaving the apartment, just sitting there, right?
yeah.
I had to go once a week to get all the groceries from the nearest store. So it was a quite an experience, but then at the same time, because I stayed behind to work and to talk to all of those mentors in the program, and also to keep in touch with our managing director Martin Olchik, as well as the team there at Techstars. I do believe this was valuable from that perspective, as to really trying to in this unique environment to capture as much as you can from those very smart individuals who are mentors in the program or who are running the program or partners of the program. And above all, of course, I enjoyed Italy, not only because it's a beautiful country, but because this is really some of the smartest and professional people I have ever met on earth in that place, at
Mm.
least in northern Italy, where I was around Turin. I was very impressed by that. And of course, we have those clusters of professionals and intellectuals and intelligent people in different places on Earth. But it was a wonderful experience from that perspective.
Yeah, I've been mentoring and working with Techstars for almost a decade, and one of the biggest, I think, powers, superpower of Techstars is that network. And they say it all the time, but like I always tell people, if you get into Techstars, like you gotta just get in, and the more you put in, the more you're gonna get out, and leverage that network. There's basically can connect you to anybody and everybody that you
Yeah.
want to be connected to. It's such a powerful network of the right people, and people do want to give first. Like people do want to lean in, they want to help people, and it's filled with those people. And then from an investing perspective, I think it's really strong. A lot of the tools and things that you learn in the program are really good, and the idea of like building out, like really focused around who you want investment from, where you're going to get that investment from, how to talk to those people. And again, I think you're very unique, early stage, how you did strategic investments and how those really paid off into getting you worldwide. And I think that's just so interesting. And you even did it, the Techstars in Italy. I think is interesting. So
Yes.
you were thinking that worldwide right away. When you went out and raised, what was it like for you? Like, did you understand it was going to be strategic right away, or what did that look like?
No. The short answer is no. I did not understand it. I just did my job, so to speak, right? So I have to mention this is my first enterprise, first time entrepreneur. So I did not know how to raise, and but I know how to talk, to speak to people, and how to try to get their interests, and not necessarily to sell. Which I'm better now with sales, just because that's the main job in terms of building the business. You have to be able to sell, and you have to know what the next steps are. But just generally talking to people and trying to convince them that this is a good idea, which is basically what fundraising is, just
Right.
convincing people that this is a good idea, guys. Let's try it out, right? Because the risk is there, especially at the super early stage, like angel stage.
Yeah.
There is really nothing to show. There's no revenue, nothing at all, no contracts at the start. So I think it's all about hustling. Now, the interesting thing about our specific business, which has pushed us more toward strategics rather than traditional financial VCs, is it's much easier for traditional VCs as well as some CVCs to just invest into blue skies, right? Oh, there's a new topic of batteries, right? And some guys are developing some breakthrough technologies there. Technology will always pay off. So let's try it out. It's just easier to make that decision because there is really nothing to compare it to, nothing to even think through, right? And then on the other hand, you have some more, a little bit more traditional businesses, such as, oh, it's just another app, which we all know how to promote apps. We all know how to submit those ads to the mobile ad network. Like, of course, it's a new incremental idea, but at least it's a known entity. We already know what an app is compared to what they were in like 2007 or 2008,
Right.
right? So, but today everyone knows how to launch an app. Basically, it's a known thing, and then it's fairly straightforward for an investor then to look through this and understand. Okay, that's how it's going to work. With our situation, we are basically creating a completely new market. In-car payments do not exist. We're not, as consumers, we're not used to transacting inside cars. We don't even know what it looks like. Yes, there are certain transactions happening like, hey, I'm gonna buy a connected services package from my car maker, right?
Right.
Which will just keep my Wi-Fi inside the car or my connectivity going, right? Or the app working, certain things like this. But it's small. It's like we don't have that kind of really holistic experience of what it would mean to buy things from within the car. be it even fuel, parking, anything like this, which is very clearly related to the vehicle.
Right.
So that is one thing, which is an aspect. And then in order to achieve that, not only you have to combine all those different components, you have to work with the huge automotive manufacturers, huge organizations, but you also have to work with huge energy companies, oil companies to get the gas stations on board. You have to work with parking, which is a super fragmented industry, right? So not only that, but also in order to achieve all of this, you have to create some experience that will work for the driver. And for us, it has been a deep tech relationship where we had to create and patent a new location-based technology. So how can you create with the existing sensors of the vehicle more high accuracy location, but not more expensive location, just more high accuracy? Just use existing hardware. Don't ask for more money from the OEMs. It's already there. How can you do it with software only means super light, super low cost? And that is what we have developed and patented. So therefore, you had this deep tech experience, deep tech component where, oh, it's a little bit of a blue skies. These guys are really trying to figure out the best experience. But at the same time, it's here. It's right now. So you can, like as an investor, you can just sit down and imagine how it will work. And because
Right.
you'd have zero reference points to know what will work in the market and how many consumers will actually use the system once it's live, that is where kind of a little bit of a disconnect happens, where I think it became a little easier for us to go then with strategic investors and traditional VCs, because on the one hand, it's very much blue skies and very much deep tech, but on the other hand, it's right now.
Yep.
And therefore, you either have to wait for the proof point, being at, hundreds of thousands of users, which you're used to in the app world, right?
Yep.
Or you have to believe it and just go with it. And that just became a little bit of a difficulty, essentially raising from financial VCs directly, which, it's their pain in the end, their loss, right?
Yeah.
So just at some points in life, you have to believe and you have to go with it and just see how it all pans out. And I'm sure we will be very successful given all our contracts that already are on the desk.
Yeah. It's interesting. A lot of people will go out and raise, VC money and then eventually go to the strategics.
Oh,
Once they, kind of get their footing and they get some product market fit, then they see the opportunity with some strategics that can help them get into, deals in bigger marketplaces.
oh.
What advice would you give people just generally if they're looking to invest or go the route with strategic investments?
Honestly, I mean, as a founder, I'll say there is no silver bullet there, and you know this as well, right? It's in my mind, there is one rule that I have been following myself through this journey: is no stone unturned. You just have to push. You have to do it. Yes, you'll see a lot of closing doors in front of you, like for many years. And it might, and in most cases, it's not your fault. In most cases, just the time is not right. The market has not realized how important it is. So speaking in-car payments specifically, only in the last couple of years, everyone realized, oh, that's the next big thing. Sure, let's go. Right. Uh, if I talk 5 years ago, like, what is this? Like, do you really want to do it? Right. So the timing is not right in most cases, but it's really just keep on going, keep on pushing, keep on hustling, keep on getting in front of people, because I do not come from the automotive industry. I knew zero people in the automotive industry. Now I probably have over 1,000 or 2,000 connections in that industry alone, right? So it's just you have to go to the expos, you have to go to trade shows, right? You have to be in front of the people. You have to make sure that the people recognize you when you talk to them. And then in order to get to the right people who will actually push the deal, that is another whole layer, right? As to probably have to go through 10 or 15 people before you get to the right person, right? So it's all hustling in my mind. It's just keep on pushing. And in some sense, yeah, in some sense, I agree with you. It's sort of harder and different to raise from strategics. And it's a little bit of luck, just meeting the right people, connect
Mm.
you to the other right people. And the biggest difference is strategics are not looking for investments, whereas VCs are looking for investments because their job is to deploy capital.
Right.
Whereas strategics, it's not their job to deploy capital. Their job is to grow their business. So therefore, if you can convince them that it helps grow their business in a strategic perspective, yes, then they will be on your side, right? And then the last piece of advice is just be patient. I mean, in this journey, I had situations where I literally had to open the piggy bank to get coins to fuel my car to get my kids to school. Literally, like
Yeah.
there were such low points in this journey, which is every entrepreneur will tell you exactly the same thing. Then they all have to go through this, right? But
Right.
and sort of if you think about it's hard, yes, it's damn hard, but it's completely normal. That is one thing that everyone needs to realize. It's completely normal to be basically broke as part of the journey.
Well, I remember when I started Collective Genius, we went 6 months without any income at all, and I remember going into the grocery store thinking like, I'm just gonna buy a whole bunch of stuff now, and hopefully this lasts a long time.
Yes.
Like because you kind of have to just force yourself to smile, and I think it is interesting. And I work with a lot of founders and their teams. Is you have to be aggressive and patient at the same time, right? Like you were saying, you got to keep on digging and no stone left unturned, but at the same time being patient. And that's hard, I think, like I'm sitting in sessions working with teams. It's kind of the annual sessions right now where our teams are doing 2 days on site, doing sessions, and everybody's very eager to put up these things and knock these things down and do this stuff, that they're not present in the sessions, right?
Mm.
Like we have to be present and just calm down and hit pause for a second in these sessions when we have the teams together so we can look back at like what's working, what's not working, what are we not discussing, really get underneath like the real like core issues and the core opportunities and have a time to just pause and talk about those things. And then there's a time to have that knowledge and plan for the next 90 days or the next year. But being present, even in those sessions, you can tell with those teams, they're so used to running as fast as they possibly can all the time that it's hard for them just to hit pause. But,
Yes.
but we all know when we prepare for something and then do it, it's always a better, we get more done, more efficient. That day that you are going before you go out of town, that day before you go out of town and you do your whole checklist and get all those things done, there's a reason why that works. And so I think when teams are together and they can hit pause, reflect, and plan, then they can run again. But it is hard to balance that running and patience.
It's very, very difficult. And I think, I mean, there's another kind of side to this, right? Which, you know, how Techstars is always, and just generally, there's a word there that teams are better when, in terms of teams of founders are better. I don't think that's necessarily true. It depends.
Founding teams are better, or what was it that you said?
Founding teams, more people in the team is better. Right?
Oh,
It's not single founders, solo founders are just not the easy way to do it, which
well, I think
still
they, I
agree.
think they, I think they flipped for a little while there. It was always you should have a co-founder, and then there was another CEO running Techstars, and they said no, it should be one single founder. I think they went back to there should be a co-founder, but I do believe that if you can empower the team to work together really well, no matter if they're a founder or founders or not, I think it's really about just having the right people with the aligned vision and clarity around who owns what and what do we need to do.
I'm in full agreement there. Absolutely. It's just the question is it one person who is really kind of dragging it all and defining the vision and the strategy and all of it together? Or is it really multiple people who are sitting together and trying to understand what to do? So, just historically, I think, you know, the big guys like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, we're all single guys. And they had to determine this. As I say, there is a saying: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Right. So,
Yeah.
so of course, at some point, you have to get a good team, right? But do you need to have that team from day one? It might not work out,
Yeah.
right? Many people will have to. There will be, you know, they wouldn't like it. There will be a lot of
Right.
conflicts, and many of these things also kill startups too.
There's an evolution, and I think it's a natural evolution from being like the founder and starting the business and starting to collect people. I think you have your vision, and as you travel with that team up that mountain, you get different perspectives and different
Mhm.
information and data that changes your view and vision of where you want to go, and it changes the people with you. So I think if you're always collecting those inputs and have a cadence of communication, where people are communicating, quarterly, weekly, and keeping that alignment is really important. And then as you traverse up that mountain, you start to realize you may need other people to go
Yes.
that length. And I think the art of scaling is the most important art for any founder or CEO. And I think what that really is, and you mentioned Steve Jobs or any of those people, Bezos, they were the masters of scaling. So what they were able to do is have a vision, share that vision, but they're also were collecting that information and vision from others. So I think it's an iteration, the vision
Mhm,
and the
mhm.
mission. It's an iteration. You can see if you go back and look at Apple, there's different mission statements. It evolved, even the mission statements, right? And same with Tesla, even it's a shorter, time period. But those companies have evolved, but it was taking in that vision, sharing that vision, iterating on that vision, reshaping it, remessaging it. It's just it's constant loop
Yeah.
and dialing in. And I think as you scale, you collect different people to get you farther and farther, and things will change and evolve.
And in some sense, I do believe that words don't really matter. What words you put in that mission statement don't matter. What matters is what is the level of energy that comes out of it? How can you energize the team to actually do something, go in a certain direction? And then, more importantly, them not to go in a different direction, which will distract you, right?
Right.
But just actually keep it all focused, keep it all in this one path.
Yeah.
So that is just a very important skill. I fully agree with you to
Yeah.
scale the business.
Yeah. Scaling is the art that any person can do if they have the right tools. And I've found over and over again, it's just the teams that are most organized are the teams that win.
Yeah.
And to get organized, you need a cadence. And I think that's that 90-day cadence and that weekly cadence with every team within the company.
Mhm,
So the
mhm.
leadership team, the product team, the sales team, they need to have that cadence of keeping that alignment and keeping that communication. And then that empowers people. I think that's the other thing. If you're really clear, everybody's really clear of their role and what they need to do, then you can run.
Yep.
Typically, why people can't run is because there's lack of clarity and the CEO's answering all the questions and they're, looking big picture and they're zooming in the small picture and they're in essence the system. And it's getting in the way of everybody else. But you create that clarity, that checklist before you go on vacation and you can hit it. That's why you can get those things done so fast, I think.
Right.
But that's a really interesting perspective and point. And going back to Techstars and the idea of having multiple founders, I think having multiple founders is great. I don't think that's the only way to do it. Think you could be a single founder, and and to me, I think founder's a title. It's
Mm,
not a role. It's not a role in the company. A role is the CEO or head of product or an
mm,
engineer or a salesperson. Those are roles. The role of the founder is that you're a shareholder and you maybe contribute a little bit more to maybe the vision that really can depend and that can change as well. But
mhm,
I think when they talk about like founder mode and all that type of stuff, um, you need to have some sort of role in the company. You can't be this rogue person, you know,
mhm,
going around and changing things. Oftentimes there's a CEO founder, which is great because they're carrying that torch and that vision. But I don't think there's one way to do it. I think there can be
agree.
multiple
Yeah,
founders or a
sometimes
single
you'll have
founder.
a technical founder, right? And they will
Yeah,
become CTO or CPO, and then CEO is coming someone from the outside, and that's perfectly normal too. I mean, in the end, the only thing that matters is success and what you can actually achieve with everything that you're doing.
exactly. Well, I have one last question for you. This has been an awesome conversation. And so my last question for you is more of a scenario, and it's going to probably be a really tough question. So I'm glad that you're ready for this. But the scenario is this: you are trapped on a desert island the rest of your life. You have everything you need: food, shelter, even healthcare. You have everything that you need. But the one thing that you don't have is entertainment. There's no entertainment on this island. But luckily for you, an old 80s boombox drifted ashore. And so now you have this radio, but you can only bring one record or one album. to listen to the rest of your life, what are you going to bring?
Hmm. I was not expecting that, Jeff.
That
Um,
wasn't in the notes, was it?
yeah, I think I would just pick some classic rock like Queen.
Queen.
Uh, yes.
I think you can't go wrong with Queen because it,
Yeah.
especially, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Queen's a good answer because even in some of their songs, it's a lot of different variety of music.
Yes. There are a lot of genres there. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And just the impact that they made on population across the world, it's amazing.
yeah. There's nothing like a Queen concert.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, good answer. Well, thank you for joining me on Tech Scenes Unplugged. It was a great conversation. We'll have to
Thank
do
you.
more in the future.
Yep, absolutely. Appreciate your time.